That is the first emperor's tomb. It's in the center of what is thought to be the largest burial complex in the world.
Right now in central China, some of the most experienced archaeologists on Earth are standing on top of a treasure chamber they can see on their scanners, and they refuse to open it.
They built mechanical traps, rivers of mercury, a kingdom beneath the earth.
Beneath their feet lies the burial palace of China's first emperor, packed with riches no living person has ever laid eyes on. They know exactly where the door is. They have the tools to break through in a single afternoon. Yet the experts who study this place keep reaching the same chilling conclusion. Whatever is waiting down there is better left alone. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly why, and you might just agree with them. The immortal obsession. To answer that, you have to go back more than 2,200 years to a China that was not yet China. The land was carved into rival kingdoms locked in near constant war, an age historians call the Warring States period. Peace was the exception, conquest was the rule. In the western state of Qin, a boy named Ying Zheng was born in 259 BC. When his father died, the boy took the throne at just 13 years old, surrounded by ambitious ministers and battle-hardened generals, all of them watching to see whether he would survive his own court. He did more than survive. Ying Zheng wanted something no ruler before him had dared to imagine. Every rival state swallowed into one nation, under one law, under one man. For nearly a decade, his armies rolled across the map with advanced weapons and merciless discipline. Han fell, then Zhao, Wei, Chu, Yan, and finally Qi. By 221 BC, it was done, and the victor gave himself a new name to match, Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of Qin. Here is what nobody tells you about what came next. The conquest was the easy part. The emperor then rebuilt reality itself. One writing system for the whole empire, one currency, one set of weights and measures, even one standard width for cart axles, so every wagon ran in the same ruts on the same roads. Old local rulers were torn out and replaced with men who owed him everything. On the northern frontier, older defensive walls were linked into one continuous barrier against nomad raids, the earliest bones of the Great Wall of China. One man controlling language, money, law, and the roads themselves. But there was one enemy he could not conquer, and it haunted him more with every passing year. Death was coming for him, just as it came for every peasant in his fields. So, he declared war on it. Scholars and alchemists were sent across the empire and out onto the ocean, chasing rumors of islands of immortality. Court physicians brewed elixirs in secret workshops, and the ingredient they trusted most was one we now know to be a slow poison, mercury. The emperor drank it, hoping to live forever. The substance he swallowed to cheat death may well have hastened it. But Qin Shi Huang never bet on only one plan. From the very first years of his reign, even as the elixirs brewed, workers were already breaking ground at a mountain east of his capital. If he could not stop death, he would rule straight through it, and the project rising there was unlike anything the world had ever seen. A buried kingdom. The emperor did not order a tomb. He ordered an entire kingdom built underground. Ancient records claim more than 700,000 workers were pulled into the project. Soldiers, craftsmen, prisoners, and conscripted farmers dragged in from every corner of the newly unified empire. Some historians suspect that number was inflated by ancient chroniclers, but the physical evidence leaves no doubt that this was construction on a staggering scale, sustained for nearly 4 decades. It began when he took the throne. It was still unfinished when he died in 210 BC, and work only stopped when rebellion tore the Qin dynasty apart. Picture the scene at the height of it. Endless lines of laborers hauling baskets of rammed earth up from pits deep enough to swallow a building, foremen shouting over the ring of bronze tools, kilns burning day and night on the plain below the mountain. Whole villages of workers lived and died beside the site, and many of them never learned what exactly they were building. Only the emperor and his closest ministers held the full picture in their heads. Before we go deeper underground, do me one quick favor. If stories like this are your kind of thing, hit that subscribe button now, because what the scientists found in the soil around this tomb is the part most people never hear. The site was Mount Li, near the ancient capital of Xi'an, close to the modern city of Xi'an. Ancient texts praise the mountain as a place of powerful geography. with gold said to lie on its northern side and jade on its southern side. For an emperor obsessed with omens, it was the perfect address for eternity. And the design tells you everything about how he saw death. The complex was modeled on his own capital. Just as the living emperor ruled from a walled palace at the heart of Xi'an, the dead emperor would rule from a mirrored palace at the heart of an underground city. Now, pay attention to this part, because the scale is where it stops sounding like a burial and starts sounding like a state secret. Archaeologists have traced 2 rings of packed earth walls, an inner city roughly 1.5 miles around, holding the central tomb, and an outer city stretching about 4 miles in circumference around it. Inside those walls, excavations have revealed the machinery of a functioning royal court: stables, kitchens, storehouses packed with supplies, ceremonial halls, courtyards, and gardens. In one section, researchers uncovered the remains of an artificial park, complete with bronze water birds and figures of musicians, built to entertain the emperor's spirit for all time. Then there are the chariots. 2 half-scale bronze chariots, each assembled from thousands of individual components, drawn by teams of bronze horses fitted with reins, harnesses, and decorative trim. One even carries a bronze canopy to shade its passenger from the sun, in a world where the sun would never shine. The engineering below ground is just as astonishing. The builders dug deep enough to worry about groundwater, and modern surveys confirm the water table sits roughly 98 feet down. So, they built drainage channels, underground dams, and sealed walls designed to keep the emperor's palace dry forever. These were people thinking not in years, but in eternity. The full necropolis sprawls across roughly 38 square miles, larger than many modern cities. After more than 50 years of careful work, archaeologists believe they have uncovered only a small fraction of it. One detail, though, might be the most revealing of all. The heaviest defenses were placed to the east of the tomb mound, the east where the 6 conquered kingdoms had once stood. Even in death, the first emperor expected revenge to come from the people he had crushed, and he did not leave his eternal palace unguarded. The Clay Army. For almost 2,000 years, the fields above the complex kept their secret. Villagers passed down strange stories about buried treasure and haunted ground, but nobody knew what was actually beneath their feet. Then came a spring morning in 1974, and a farmer named Yang Jifa, standing waist-deep in a half-dug well, digging for water. When his shovel struck carved clay, he and the other farmers crouched in the pit and kept digging with their hands, uneasy now, pulling fragments out of the wall of the well, part of a head, a section of torso, the green-tinged tip of a bronze weapon. Some of the men wondered aloud if they had disturbed a temple spirit and wanted to fill the hole back in. They had no way of knowing they had just cracked open the edge of one of the greatest archaeological discoveries in human history. When archaeologists arrived and began to excavate, the scale slowly came into focus. Arranged in precise battle formation beneath the soil stood thousands of life-size clay soldiers. The world now knows them as the Terracotta Army. More than 8,000 warriors have been identified in the main pits so far, and more are still buried, still waiting in the dark. Here is the detail that stops people cold. No 2 soldiers are identical. Every figure has its own face. Different eyes, different hairstyles, different expressions. Some wear mustaches, some are clean-shaven. Some look grim and battle-ready, others almost calm. Many scholars believe the sculptors modeled them on real men, actual soldiers who served the emperor in life. The production process behind them was just as remarkable. Workshops operated like ancient assembly lines, mass-producing legs, torsos, arms, and heads that were combined, customized, and finished by hand. Many pieces even carry the stamped names of the foremen responsible, an early form of quality control from 22 centuries ago. Standardized parts, individual faces. It was the emperor's whole philosophy of empire, rendered in clay. And the army was only the beginning. Further pits held terracotta chariots and horses positioned as if ready to charge, along with generals, archers, infantry, and cavalry. Kneeling crossbowmen, spearmen standing at attention. Some figures still gripped genuine bronze weapons, blades preserved so well they could cut skin today. Beyond the military pits came the softer side of the emperor's eternal world. Acrobats frozen mid-performance, musicians in detailed robes, Court officials with the tools of their office, stable hands, and even clay ducks and swans beside what appears to have been an underground garden pond. This was never just an army. It was an entire court rebuilt in clay, so the emperor would lack nothing in the world below. But the discovery came with a catastrophe, and it happened in front of human eyes. When the figures came out of the ground, some still wore their original paint, pink skin tones, armor in red and black, robes in blue, green, and white. Picture an archaeologist kneeling over a freshly exposed warrior in those early seasons, watching color that had survived 22 centuries underground begin to curl, flake, and lift away within minutes of touching open air, and being able to do absolutely nothing to stop it. Some workers reportedly tried to shield fragments with whatever was at hand: wet cloth, plastic sheeting, their own shadows, and it made almost no difference. The lacquer beneath the pigment shriveled as the moisture left it, and the color went with it. Within hours, many figures were stripped back to bare gray clay. Details no one alive had ever seen were gone before anyone could photograph them, and the people standing closest to history got to watch it disappear. For the excavators, it was a brutal lesson, and it planted a fear that has shaped every decision at this site since. Excavation itself can be an act of destruction. 4 major pits have been mapped near the tomb. Pit 1 holds the main army. Pit 2 contains cavalry, chariots, and archers. Pit 3 appears to be the command post, staffed with high-ranking officers. Pit 4 was found empty, likely abandoned when the emperor died and the dynasty began to collapse. Hundreds of smaller pits lie scattered across those 38 square miles, some holding animals, some holding entertainers. Many never opened at all. But every one of those pits is just a satellite. They all orbit the same center, a massive earthen mound shaped like a flattened pyramid, and beneath it, the burial chamber of Qin Shi Huang himself. That chamber has never been opened, not by looters as far as anyone can tell, not by archaeologists, not by anyone. And there are very specific reasons why. Rivers of mercury. The emperor's own end came far from home. In 210 BC, while touring the eastern provinces, still chasing reports of immortality elixirs, Qin Shi Huang died suddenly at around age 49. His closest ministers panicked. Terrified of rebellion, they hid his death. And according to ancient accounts, they hauled carts of salted fish alongside the imperial carriage to mask the smell of the decaying body on the long road back to the capital. The man who dreamed of living forever returned home disguised by rotting fish. Then he was lowered into the underground kingdom he had spent his entire reign preparing. What he was lowered into, we know mostly from one man. Picture him, a court historian named Xi'an, hunched over bamboo strips in the imperial archives about a century after the emperor's death, brush in hand, recording accounts of the tomb that he could scarcely believe himself. In his records of the Grand Historian, he describes a burial chamber built as a scale model of the empire, the floor shaped into the landscape of China, rivers and seas made not of water, but of liquid mercury, driven by mechanisms to keep them flowing, mimicking the Yangtze, the Yellow River, and the Great Ocean. Above it all, a ceiling painted with the stars, so the dead emperor would lie at the center of his own universe. And then, the warnings. Craftsmen had rigged the tomb with hidden crossbows, set to fire automatically at anyone who broke in. For centuries, most scholars filed all of that under legend. Sima Qian never saw the tomb himself. He was writing down stories passed along for 100 years, and rivers of flowing mercury sounded like exactly the kind of detail that grows in the telling. Impressive on the page, easy to dismiss in the field. That was the consensus for a very long time. Then modern science checked the soil. In the early 2000s, researchers walked the burial mound itself, pressing sampling probes into the packed earth above the sealed chamber, and sent the soil off for chemical analysis. When the readings came back, the numbers stopped them cold. Mercury concentrations far beyond anything natural for the region, with one reading above 1,400 parts per billion. Dozens of samples showed the mercury distributed unevenly across the mound, in patterns that some researchers argue loosely echo the geography of China's great waterways, just as Sima Qian described. The team was standing on top of the evidence that the old historian might have been telling the truth all along. Today, many experts believe significant amounts of mercury may still be sealed inside the chamber, some of it likely lingering as vapor. Mercury vapor is seriously dangerous. Inhaling even modest amounts can cause lasting damage to the brain, lungs, and kidneys. Cracking the tomb open without extraordinary precautions would not just risk the artifacts, it could endanger every person on the site. And then there is the question nobody can fully answer: the traps. If Qin engineers really did install mechanical crossbows, and if those mechanisms were built from durable bronze, it is at least possible that some remain armed after 2,000 years. Most experts consider it unlikely that ancient triggers would still function perfectly. But unlikely is not the same as impossible, and no one wants to test the difference with their own body. Scientists can see the chamber. Ground-penetrating radar and remote sensing have mapped its shape, its depth, its sealed walls. They know precisely where the door is. They just will not open it. The waiting game. So, when will the seal finally be broken? The honest answer is that nobody knows. Stand at the base of the mound today with the archaeologists who oversee this site, and you will find people who have spent entire careers a few hundred feet from the greatest sealed chamber on Earth, and who still will not give the order to dig. The memory that stops them is the paint. Colors that survived 22 centuries underground died in minutes of open air. If simple pigment was that fragile, imagine silks, wooden structures, documents, or the emperor's own remains meeting the outside world. That is why the dominant view says wait. Wait for technology that can stabilize the atmosphere inside, neutralize the toxins, and preserve delicate materials before a single human enters. Researchers are already testing non-invasive tools, advanced radar, magnetometers, and small robotic probes that might one day slip inside without breaking the seal at all. So far, those tools cannot see through the deepest layers of earth and sealed stone. The heart of the tomb remains a blank space on every scan, a shape the instruments can outline but never enter. Every survey ends the same way. The team packs up its equipment, the data gets analyzed, and the chamber below stays exactly as sealed as it was the day the last Qin workman walked away from it. But waiting carries its own risks, and this is the part that keeps preservationists up at night. This is earthquake country, floods, pollution, and the growth of nearby cities all press against the site, and looters have destroyed countless ancient tombs around the world. Leave the chamber sealed long enough, and nature or greed might make the decision for everyone. The first emperor spent his life trying to control everything, and in a strange way, he is still doing it. 2,000 years after his death, he is still dictating the terms, and the greatest scientists on the planet are still obeying. So, now the question comes to you. Should we open the tomb with the tools we have, or leave Qin Shi Huang to keep his secrets a little longer? Drop your answer in the comments. And if you want more stories like this one, subscribe to the channel so you never miss what history has been hiding.